What's happening? It's Paddy from the Hangar, and I am covered in pseudocreme. Why? That's none of your f***ing business. I'm going to be prepping and doing some bass guitar. The way that I do songs is I will have them written on Guitar Pro, as I spoke about before. Then I will recreate those drums in Pro Tools, maybe change things here and there as it's going across. Once I've done that, once the drums are complete, the next stage for me is generally to do bass guitar. I will bring you in closer. Not too close. Careful. So the reason why I want a closer view is this is how things will look once I am finished doing drums. Essentially what we're looking at here is every little bit of blue is a digital trigger for drums to happen. And each of these drums are separated over the various tracks. So the very first thing I'm going to do is there's a sub menu underneath each of these tracks, which you can assign to certain things. I have it assigned to velocity, so I can set and adjust how hard each MIDI thing hits. So you can have a very quiet drum hit or a very loud drum kit. Then I'm going to make the tracks smaller. Usually I try to just tuck them away a little bit, just in case I need to come back and add or take away certain drum hits depending on how I play the song going forward. Because much like a band, if you were playing live, you would adjust each other whilst you were playing. I'm going to add a track for my bass guitar, and when you click on the add track you come up with this menu and you get different selections. I'm going to create one mono audio track in Tix, and its name is going to be bass guitar, and then it creates the track here. But because I'm not a bassist, I have a cheap bass guitar and no bass amp, so there will be no live bass recordings yet. The way I get round that, and the way you can get round this issue if, for example, you want to record quietly or if you don't have a guitar amp, is to use a plugin. And the plugin I use is a plugin called Amplitude. It is a great plugin. I used it on the entirety of my first album on Spotify, Trick. It done the job. So it caters to guitar and to bass. So we'll scroll all the way down to bass, and in the bass section you've got various bass amp selections. The cool thing about Amplitude is you can add in all sorts of pedals and effects. You can change the way that your signal chain goes, so you can have your guitar going into 2 amps, or your 1 amp going into 2 cabs, or 2 amps going into 2 separate cabs, 3 amps going into the 1 cab. You can change out speakers in your cabinet. You can exchange the microphones that are digitally picking up the speakers through a cab. You can change the room that it's in. Mid studio I like, because it's kind of what we're working with here. So it will be a similar acoustics reaction to what I would get from either live recording bass, or similar to what I would get from when I'm doing the guitar. So the next thing I will need to do is plug it in. Plug the bass guitar in, and for that I'm going to have to move you back. My bass will be going through a Boss NS2, which is a noise gate, a noise suppressor. as I said, that was me using Amplitude. Much like Addictive Drums, I highly recommend having Amplitude, even if you have all the amps in the world. It's great to have because it's so much easier. It's not always going to sound the same as a live recording, because it's not. But it's so much easier. You get a great selection, even with the demo version of it. You get a great selection. That was recorded with my Harley Benton standard series bass guitar as well. As I say, it was a fairly budget bass guitar, but sounds good, does its job. And at the end of the day, I got it to sound like a bass guitar. It sounds like a bass guitar, and there's issues with it, for sure. There are issues with that guitar. There's not just Amplitude either. There's another plugin I use called STL Ignite, and it's very much the same. Slightly different interface, slightly different way of doing things, different selection of guitar amps, but I find that a lot of them are, even the ones I know aren't particularly high gain amps in real life, I find that the sound is very catered to a higher gain. But if you're looking for a crunch sound, you're buggered. So we're on to another track here that I'm going to double check I've done all the drums. Try to remember what I'm doing. Put in some cymbals. So on the top of every bar, or at the start of every bar if you wish, we'll put a kick drum. That's what it sounds like there. Similarly, at the start of every bar, we'll put a heavy hit snare drum. That's what it sounds like there. And then in the middle of each bar, we'll put call this section N for November, or for Nutsack, or for Nutella, or for That's Not Nutella, that's sh**. So let's listen back to what we've got there, what we've done with those drums. Then we have to annotate that on the list. If I can fit, there it is. So we progressed that actually a minute. Let's do some fucking bass. Again, we'll be using Amplitude. We'll be using the Fender Bassman because I like it. You get a little bit of distortion on the bass when you slap at the bass and when you pick at the bass. Yep, let's do it. What the fucking hell's getting in my way? Shineri Doodah. This off. Ah, yeah. Sweet. Let's hear how that sounds. So that was some bass guitar, some drums. Yeah, so I hope it was decent. If you liked it, subscribe, like the videos, share them about the place. But most importantly, safe landing.